Welcome to Appeal Yourself Off the Mat edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest, and I can't wait to do today's show. I was very excited. I always like Mondays anyway. You got have so many different things on the platform here. NFL Week number 10 comes to a conclusion tonight with a good one. Eagles and Green Bay had all the action yesterday. I was back there at Brews Room, Mike Jones. I was reintroduced the great Mike Jones to you, but out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching the Bears and the New York Giants. Mike was with us last week. He decided the stress was too much of watching the games with other people and being distracted. So I don't know if you were curled up in a fetal position in the last 4 minutes of that game as the Giants fell apart. The headline in the New York Post today, Deep Blue See Ya, Deep Blue See Ya, as in your man Brian Dayball. And the subhead is, This loss should mark beginning of end for the Dayball era with the Giants. My first question to you when you signed on here today, just before we got started, Mike, are you okay? I really, I was afraid to call you yesterday because
It's just, you sit there, you have a 10-point lead, but I'm gonna get into the conversation about what Greg Olson said when the Giants should have went for it on fourth down after taking down the 3 points, fourth and a half a yard. And we have a giant thread that we're on, and we were all in unison take the 3 points, take the 20-10, go up 10 with 11 minutes to go, 12 minutes to go in the game. You feel like you got a 10-point lead. Your defense has played well throughout. We're making mistakes, not tackling Caleb Williams when we're getting shots at him, but overall we're hanging in there. And you watch that, and I'm sitting there going, this guy's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's the new analytics world. The odds are that you're going to score. The opposing team scores when they leave them at the 1 yard line. If the Giants get 3 and out, you don't. But now it's a 1-score game. They need 2 possessions. You go down, they get the ball after 20-10, and you stop them on fourth down, and you get the ball back. And then Jackson Dart, who's out of the game, you realize right now that Russell Wilson makes 1 first down with his feet. He can't see in the pocket. They start blitzing 5 and 6 men. The Giants aren't picking up the blitz, and Russell Wilson is just running for his life. He can't make throws, and guys are dropping balls. There's a complete – we had a really good successful drive for a field goal when Dart went out of the game, and we ran the football very well in that drive. It looked like the offensive line was motivated. The guy's gone, and we get points. But again, you have a 5-minute game, 6-minute game with 10-point lead, and your defense all of a sudden goes into a shadow. They just don't play. They don't hit. I mean, that Caleb Williams run, Brian Burns is the only guy at the goal line that gets his hand on him. He's blitzing him, and then he's the one chasing him down. Guys aren't fighting through blocks. It's like you could feel it coming. And at that point, I love Brian Daboll. I love the development of Jackson Dart. The Giants started the season thinking they were a quarterback away from being okay. They kept the same offensive line. This is all GM stuff. The offensive line was a problem, and it really hasn't been a problem all year. But you emphasize this great pass rush. You put all this money into these defensive players, and now you don't get pressure. You can't tackle Caleb Williams, and he's making plays with his feet, looking like he's all world. Everybody thinks he's in the second coming now. So to me, I look at it like finally I've come to grips that they have to make a move in the front office or the coaching staff, and the defensive coordinator will be gone at the end of the year. I can't see him staying. And I just look at it like it's just hard being a Giant fan right now because you just get another game you just can't blow. And if they don't blow the Dallas game in the last 15 seconds, if they don't blow these games, they're 5-5 and they're competitive in every game. No one's blowing them out. They're getting 8.5 from the Packers this week. I won't be surprised if they lose. They're up 10 in the fourth quarter and lose again. Yeah, I mean, it's it. But what I'm seeing out of Jackson Dart yesterday in those elements, Jeff, the Giants have a quarterback. This kid is better than advertised. I thought he was going to be good. He's even better than I thought. But he takes a hit. Now, last thing on the Giants, we'll move on. The refereeing. Daniel Bellinger in that 4th and 1 has got 2 feet down, the ball in his hands in the end zone, falls on top of the guy. The guy bats the ball out of his hands, incomplete pass. If he catches that ball at the 1 yard line and crosses the goal line with 2 feet in the ball, it's a touchdown. Why is it that he has to come down with it in possession when he's got in his hands with 2 feet down in the end zone and does it? Didn't understand that call. I went crazy when it was called. My friend said, no, he's got to maintain possession through the ground. I get that. But he landed on the guy, and the guy batted the ball out of his hands. It wasn't like the ground caused the incompletion or the hit did. The player knocked it out. That was one. Secondly, Dart fumbles on that concussion play which I saw him get knocked out as his head was hitting the ground. I think he was knocked out in the air. He regains the ball, and then the ball's in his hands, and the guy takes it from him because he's out. Ground can't cause a fumble, so he regained possession. So that really wasn't a fumble when I rewound it 10 times. But again, no review, no talk about the play on Fox, and they move on. Look, 2 plays that make the difference in a game. Giants win with those 2 plays. And the bottom line is we're not as bad as we think we are, but you can't blow games because you are what the record says you are. Bill Parcells' old adage. We're 2-8. We're drafting 3, and this guy's not going to survive it. And I hate to fire the coach, but he's gone. That's my opinion. I think I'll be shocked if he stays.
Doesn't look good, man. Joe Shane, too, maybe packing his bags here. There are guys with yellow jackets hovering around his house right now looking to get the listing. And look, the way the team has performed, did they do enough to kind of trigger a transition? Maybe, but those 2 letters are the big, on the top of every degenerate eye chart are the 2 giant, and instead of the big E, they have IF. And you could do this all day long. And you being Mr. Parcells' disciple there, you are what your record says you are. I don't know that that's always the case, but for the most part it is. And the IF seldom works. And look, how many of these NFL games especially come down to one play, one call, one score? The good news is I believe you were getting 4 and a hook in that ball game. So you got the cover. And we've said this many times, and any gambler knows this, that the hook is like a gaff. If you were out on a fishing expedition, you can live and die by it. I had some guys come up to me. You'll find this surprising. I spent my Saturday at a pari-mutuel facility, and a bunch of guys come up, and they knew I was associated with the Hurricanes for a while, so they're always asking me about what the status is. And first thing I mention is the Cristobal factor. But the question was, could they cover 28 and a hook against the Syracuse Orange, who my alma mater, who have no offense whatsoever since their quarterback went down. So I'm thinking final score somewhere along the lines of 35-3 if Syracuse somehow manages to squeeze a field goal out of it. Otherwise, I think they're getting shut out. And so I said, well, you know what? I think there's a chance here that they cover, but you have to – and I don't know that this was part of the equation, but there's always the Cristobal factor, and somehow they managed to win 35-10 or 38-10 and lose by the hook. So if you took the 28 and a hook there with an inept Syracuse team, you ended up a winner. If you took the 4.5 with the Giants, in spite of the fact that they gagged in this game, Mike Jones, I mean, that was a collapse. Up 10 with 4 minutes to go and you lose the ball game. And plus you allow a quarterback to just streak down the sidelines where 6 guys have a shot at him and nobody touches him.
Yeah.
That was pretty ugly. But the hook was again, I mean, just a huge engaging factor in a lot of wagers over the weekend. All right, so we have the conclusion coming up tonight of week number 10 in the NFL. I know you were zeroed in on your Giants, and I was a little worried because I actually checked the obituary columns today. I did find Paul Tagliabue. I did find Lenny Wilkins. I did not see Mike Jones in there. So I was happy about that because it meant you were going to be available to do the show today. But it's hard to come up with really definitive conclusions. I mean, watching the game that took place here in town, Miami Dolphins is dismantling and completely owning a Buffalo Bills team that I had just seen in the New York Post, my beloved New York Post. One of the handicappers who puts out a power rankings had just put the Bills number 1 overall in the league in the power rankings after they bounced back from those couple of losses. And they come into town and get shellacked. All of those big, fat, overweight Bills fans that are wearing bowling shoes to weddings and things of that nature, stuck at the elbow room, probably having to clean up their own vomit after the game took place because, I mean, they were completely stymied in this one. So what can we draw in terms of conclusions as to who's really good? It seems like there's a large cachet of contenders so far in the NFL. I don't know. What are you thinking, Mike Jones, in terms of champions?
I think we got the game right now to watch this weekend is lined up for what should be fantastic. And I like the dog in this game. The Rams are playing the Seahawks this week. The Rams are laying 2.5. And I'm telling you, I'm an early Seahawk lover. I just have that defense is coming like gangbusters. Yes, 2 turnovers for touchdowns. DeMarcus Lawrence, I think, recovers 2 fumbles, for touchdowns in that game. I mean, Seattle last 2 have been unbelievably impressive in the last 2 games that they've played between going to Washington and dominating, and then coming over to, then beating Arizona, who everybody was in love with after after Monday night. The way they took apart Dallas, and that game Sunday should be must-watch TV. I think it's the game of the year right now. Both teams 7-2, front runner for the division, front runner for home field, possibly if Green Bay beats Philly tonight. I think there's a possibility Green Bay will beat Philly tonight for some crazy reason. I have a feeling it's possible. The line keeps dropping down, and I don't know. It's 1 now. I saw. I'm going to take Green Bay and take my chances. Jordan Love shows up and plays well after what we saw a week ago. This league is just so interesting how it's week to week. But now now everybody's in love with the Ravens because they've won 3 in a row. They got Lamar Jackson back. Now after watching the Steelers, our pick that we thought Steelers would show up, you could see that was going away early.
Aaron Rodgers a shot fighter at this point?
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what. I think we're seeing the end of an era that I think Aaron Rodgers should probably hang it up, and so should Russell Wilson.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Tomlin.
No, I don't know about, again,
Tomlin seems to do
more
with
balls, but here, yeah. This is what I think is the most important thing different between a Jackson Dart and an Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. Jackson Dart's head is up all the time with the ball as he approaches and moves around and does things. He makes those crazy plays in the pocket where he does the early Aaron Rodgers in his career, makes a little bit of space and carries plays on for a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't have the tools that Aaron Rodgers said in the skill positions to make that look even more effective because it's an unbelievable way to play. Aaron Rodgers to do it. Last night, he was staring at the rush. Last night, when he had enough time, you could see his eyes were coming down off the receivers because he gets up there and realizes nobody's really getting open. They're not getting separation. Then he hits Austin. The ball drops right out of his hands for a pick that basically ends the game. Guy's wide open. What more can you do? Pittsburgh is not executing. They do not have the wide receivers. I heard they tried to get one. I don't know if they got the skill people. Someone brought up a great point today. They should have traded back for George Pickens. Maybe with Aaron Rodgers, he'd be a different player. I don't know. But I'm not going to put this all on Aaron Rodgers. I think he's 18 touchdowns, 7 picks. But I did hear that it's more picks than he's thrown than the Steelers threw all last year, which I find a very interesting stat. But it's just, I just look at it like once you take you're looking at the rush, it's time to back it in. Any quarterback. If you're going to start looking around, take your eyes off what you're supposed to be doing and worried about getting hit and worried about where the pressure's coming from. And you can't outrun these guys because these DNs are 260 and run 4.6s and you're running 4.8, 4.9. So you're not avoiding any rush or any these guys are quicker than you. You have to figure it out. And Aaron Rodgers needs to step it up, but he's got the antidote right now because the Bengals are coming to town. So, but you're looking at that line, only 5.5. It tells you right there that the Bengals are going to be in that game.
I always hate this syndrome. I guess it's Johnny U wearing with that lightning bolt on his helmet after the brilliant career he had with the Colts. Joe Willie sitting on the Rams helmet and pathetically getting into a game and then looking like he was Ryan Leaf in his second game of his career. Just an absolute disaster. When you see, and this happened with Tom Brady, I was surprised he was able to resurrect him. His previous championship status with Tampa Bay because towards the end of his run with the New England Patriots, you rarely saw this. When those caliber of quarterbacks are making clown plays where they're dropping back and all of a sudden they look like Jameis Winston trying to dodge a pass rush and then they throw a ball up there where they invoke the infield fly rule and you're thinking that this is not characteristic of the greatness that this guy's displayed throughout his career. And I thought that when Aaron Rodgers backed up back into the end zone on that sack for the safety, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I mean, you don't see Aaron Rodgers making clown plays like that where
no.
He has to get rid of the football. At the very worst, run out of the pocket and throw it out of bounds. But you can't go back into the end zone with guys draped all over you and end up taking a safety. And that was Pittsburgh was doing well up until that point. I know they were only up 3-0, but you could see that things were going to fall apart from there. And
in that play, his hand is hit by this thigh of the offensive lineman, which caused the bobble that created a safety. He might have been able to get around that, but once the bobble occurred, he realized he had to fall on the ball, save 2 instead of 7. Yeah. But again, that's a play that Khalil Mack is staring right in front of him, and he looks over at Mack to see what's happening, tries to avoid him. That's one of the plays I'm looking at, that he's got a guy that crossing the middle that he could just dump the ball to. He knows to just throw it at his feet. Get out of there, incomplete pass. Don't take the sack. Don't lose the yardage. And the thing, but I'm going to get back to one of the great points I always make, and I think I'm right on this. Tom Brady orchestrated that whole deal to get to Tampa. Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions the year before. They were a 500 football team. Bruce Arians can coach offense. He knew it. He went down and revamped the offensive line, brought in 3 new guys. They drafted Tristan Wirfs. And arguably, Jeff, and you could ask this, I'll ask you the question. Did he ever play with the skill people that he had down there? He had 3 good tight ends. He had Mike Evans. He had Chris Godwin. He had a running back with Fournette. He had tools that New England never really put together. And their pass rush was excellent. They had a great pass rush at that point. Their defense was capable. So I think he knew, and when he got there, and he gets reprimanded because during the when you're supposed to not be at the field doing anything, when we're in our shutdown, he's out there playing and getting his receivers out there throwing balls around, not caring about the United States of America during the COVID crisis. He's out there playing around and doing his thing and thinking, I'm not going to be sick. We're healthy. We're going to do whatever. And he's right. And the bottom line is he orchestrated that Super Bowl. And I don't know. I think when I looked at that team going into that season, I was scared. I said, boy, this is really interesting. He's going to pull this off. Because being a Belichick guy and an old Giant guy, you kind of wanted to see that it was kind of a team together. And then all of a sudden, Belichick gets thrown aside because Brady wins one off kilter. But Brady did a brilliant job in orchestrating that Super Bowl win. But that's all I'll say. But you're right. These 2 guys, Russell Wilson, what I saw yesterday is that he can't see through the pass rush. They blitzed him every play late in the game. He couldn't get the ball out. He couldn't do this. And I think right now the first thing I said is Jameis Winston should start this week if Dart can't go. They should just totally put Russell Wilson and let him go. That's what I think should happen. Great career, Russ. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the party. Thanks for the great showing against Dallas, one of the great games you'll ever see. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, the decline. I mean, it was already starting to surface when he was still with the Seattle Seahawks, and they get rid of him. He goes to Denver. That was a bust, and ends up with Pittsburgh, where he had a couple of good moments when he first got into the starting lineup, but then quickly all of that dissipated. Yeah. And, last night, of course, looking like the proverbial. And I was surprised this happened to me at a social gathering. I used the term shot fighter, and I'm not used to people that aren't familiar with that term, but he did look like a shot fighter, as on occasion, both of us, unfortunately, have been guilty of as well, especially with the selections I made this week, which were brutal on our other handicapping show that we have on the Bleacher Brothers platform. All right, a lot of interesting stuff. College football, Indiana just barely survives. The people with the Mendoza line money on the Heisman are now the favorite, probably got their share of nervous moments during that ball game. Looked like they were going to lose to Penn State. Penn State in control all the way. They do get a miracle finish and pull it off to stay unbeaten. I know you have been. Have you not been the biggest Texas A&M advocate? What would you say?
Well, being an SEC guy, I think that A&M has played pretty well. I thought they would win against Missouri, and they did. This week they have South Carolina, so I'll get an upfront look at them again. They're laying 19. I mean, that's a big number. And if they find a way to protect, I don't know how they'll do it. If Sellers, I think they cover South Carolina. I don't see them winning the game, though. I think A&M just moves on. Ron Elko has done a good job there. They liked him at Duke. He made Duke a winner. Goes out to A&M. He's a defensive mind. Good coach and getting it done. I think A&M probably gets past South Carolina this week. I don't know if they cover. The Georgia-Texas game is very interesting. I like Texas getting 6 early on. I just think that that's a competitive game, goes down to the wire. I'd look at that game saying, okay, maybe that line's inflated a little bit over the 2 games against Mississippi State. I think they just ran into a buzzsaw. But I like that game. And, and then one other game I'm looking at is UCLA. Looks like they that whole little run they had of high success, knocking off Penn State, doing all that. I think that's kind of come to an end as they go to Ohio State, getting 30.5. I think Ohio State just puts it on them as they prepare for Michigan.
All right, so you're all set. I love this. You're already gearing up for next week's action, which is quite a bit down the road. We do have to get into this story a little bit and see what you think. It's not a new story, but it had new developments where these pitchers from the Guardians who had been suspended since, I think, July when this investigation implied that they were responsible for fixing prop bet situations. And this is really curious to me because how can you? I know you've converted to the in-game betting. You're part of the Gen Z degenerate generation, and you're. I don't know that you're betting on every pitch, but who is? And I mean, how can you possibly think that you're going to avoid some kind of oversight detection from some gambling organization. When you're sending in massive amounts of money through various sources, who's even taking this kind of money? Where you can make enough money on a bet on whether a pitch was going to exceed 96.5 miles an hour, or whether or not the first pitch of the third inning was going to be a ball or a strike. And wouldn't there you have to have at least some semblance of offsetting that action if you were trying to put, say,
Well,
supposedly these guys made like $400,000 overall. It wasn't necessarily the two pitchers involved. Class A, I think Class A is how you pronounce the one guy's name,
yeah,
Ortiz
we're
is the
teasing
other.
Cosby.
And
Yeah,
I mean, who would risk their career over these denominations of money? I know the thrill of winning money. Most people would rather win $50 gambling than make 50,000 on their job just because of the thrill of it and the way it came about and being right. They're highly competitive, but I mean, supposedly Clase was taking money out of his own bank account and distributing it to people who were then either betting for him or themselves, and influencing, whether or not a ball. I mean, it would be easy enough to throw a pitch and make sure it was a ball. I guess the thing that could really screw that up would be if the guy takes a swing at it. It's some hacker that goes ahead and swings at one that you threw 10 feet out of the strike zone, and then it becomes a strike, and everybody gets buried. I mean, high risk stuff to risk a career where even some schmenk reliever that's not all that effective, still, it always amazes me. You see in the offseason, well, so and so got $4 million to sign with the Mets. Like the guy was 2-7 with a 6.45 earned run average. Who's giving this guy $4 million thinking he's going to turn it around? But the money is so staggering. I can't imagine that these guys are being influenced to do this, and yet, I mean, the feds they're not always right, but I mean they've been pursuing this for a long time. Seems to have some validity to it. That they've seen the weird betting patterns. I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, who could possibly think that you could influence a pitcher to throw an errant pitch deliberately and get enough action on it to make it worthwhile?
Jeff, there's two places to go with this, and you blame the players obviously for the corruption and the fact they do it. But how does a player even know that you can bet on the first pitch unless someone makes it aware of them? That didn't exist 18 years ago, 15 years ago. I never heard of it. It's just these, it's like the coin toss in football in the Super Bowl. Tons of people bet it. It's a fun thing to bet. It's there. But now when you're sitting there orchestrating, looking at something, stats and all that, why are you putting it up there if you're an operator, unless you want corruption, unless you're trying to steal money? You're putting it out there at 115, maybe 120, so it's a grab. It's a crap shoot at 6-5. If you flip a 50-sided coin, you get it 50 times, you're making 20% on the bet. That's what they're doing. It's just a way to steal money. And if they had a brain, and I believe this should happen with props too, they should start analyzing and taking down these things where they shouldn't have them in there. If they want to be ethical and moral, not worried about the 1-800 gambler bio that they put on the bottom of the screen when you're at.
Sure. They're trying to discourage this kind of addiction.
This is flat out one of them. There's no reason to even put that out there. But I can tell you this: it started when you could bet a quarter. Guys would tell me, "I want to bet the quarter. I can watch 30 minutes of the game and know if I won or lost money." It was the instant gratification era that we're in now. That the quicker the bet, the live bet, all that stuff, get it going, and then that volume. And now you get kicked out of these sites, for when you're pressing a bet and you're pressing in, the line changes, and it never goes in your favor, and you have to reorchestrate the button because it'll accept it and it won't accept it. There's a lot of things going on with this business now that I really don't like, and one of which is there's got to be these certain bets that you have to take down. I think it's going to get to a conclusion where college sports, they're not going to put props up, player props in college sports. Graham Gano came out this week and said he gets death threats when he makes a kick or misses a kick on social media. They missed a kick, the Giant fans are all mad. Make the kick, you cost the guy money because you covered a spread or do something. And now these guys are getting death threats. And if it's on these players' minds, you got to get into the mindset of what they're going through. Get off social media if you're a player. You don't need to brand yourself while you're playing in the league. Go get a job, and everybody's has got talk shows like we do now. There's got to do something. But the operators got to be careful here because it goes into the ethics of the whole process and what they're doing. And they really got to sit and analyze this. But I don't think they care. I don't think these people, the operators, care enough to, that's it. It's way. It wasn't us that had the problem. It was the players that corrupted it and made it bad. So that's my thought on that.
How widespread do you think something like that is? I mean, look,
I
they
think it's more. I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg. I think they're doing it. I think if you're in Vegas, I never look. I was in Vegas for 10 years. I hung out with Vernon Davis. I hung out with Stephen Phillips. I hung out with Braylon Edwards. I met players, fighters, all that stuff. Never ever crossed my mind to ask them one thing about related to a gamble. And I'm a gambler. Just knowing that you have to have a process and ethics about what you're doing. If I saw the guy limping around, I'd say, "Oh, he's hurt. He's in Vegas. He's hurt. Whatever." Then I know something. But it was rare. There wasn't pro sport team. I didn't see, the hockey players out when you were out there. Now I didn't see the Raiders there, so I didn't really know. So you might see something when you're coming around, but it's got to, there's got to be something done. But the players have to take some responsibility too, But I don't think if the player says, "Yeah, I'm a little banged up," to a family member, and they say, "Oh, the guy's going to go under in his props," is he saying something deliberately to say this? He's answering a question to someone and wants to know about his health. If that person takes that information and goes gambles with it, is the player really at fault with that? I'm not telling him to go bet it, but I think if you take $1 from this, if you're Terry Rozier and you got $5 from that, what you said there and did, you're done. That's what it should be, because then it's like, what you're doing and you're taking money. Hey, thanks for the bet. If I wanted to go out, if a guy covered and I saw him in Vegas, I'd buy him a drink. He didn't know why, but I'd say, "Hey, here's a drink. Thanks for the cover." I mean, that was it. It wasn't like, it wasn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, this goes way back. I remember it was a tennis player. I guess he may be coaching somebody now. Ivan Lubicic, what was a fairly prominent ball-headed guy, and he was kind of an irascible sort. What wasn't the friendliest, and he was involved in a couple of very suspicious transactions where.
Yeah.
He had lost or defaulted in matches where there was an unusual amount of betting action against him. And I remember seeing, and you would think that this would be so easily detectable. There'd be a bunch of Russian money coming in that some obscure doubles team was going to double fault on the first point.
Right.
And you're thinking, how could anybody be taking this action where somebody all of a sudden, a guy calls you're making book, and he says, "Hey, I want 20,000 on a double fault on the first point in this preliminary round tennis match that's going to be on court 16 somewhere in a low-level tournament," and you're thinking, who's booking that? I mean, you got to be out of your mind, and it seemed like it'd be easily detectable.
Yeah, but here's the good thing about tennis, and this happened 20 years ago. There was a Russian player, I think his name was Medvedev, ironically, that played, and the Russian mob got into him, and eventually he was beating guys and had to default, walk off the court because these guys couldn't hit the ball back, and the Russians made him do it. And it got to Real Sports HBO. I know Brian Gummel did a story on it, and the corruption. And tennis figured it out and said, if you don't finish the match, doesn't matter what happens, it's a default. And it goes to a no bet. And that's what you have to do. All the bets are null and void players. Now, more players are getting hurt than ever before because of the extensive workouts, and guys are tweaking muscles and stuff like that. Players can't play, stomach viruses, whatever the hell they're doing. But tennis got it right. And that's what has to happen. And I go back to the good things that Fanatics did and some of these companies. When Steph Curry got hurt last year in the playoffs and everybody had that over, they gave back $500,000 in refunds off Steph Curry prop bets. And I think that's what has to happen. They have to set rules up that are available for the player to see, where if the player doesn't play a half, gets out, even for injury or something happens in the NFL, the bets are null and void. And you have to, whether you're over or under, whatever. If you want to pay the overs, if they already hit the over in the first half in the first game, I know some offices do that. Like you get a player prop and he goes over 50 yards and it's an 80-yard touchdown. I know they pay it right away. So they're helping the player that way, because if it's someone gets hurt. But, or you could say if the game goes over, the under would have lost and the bet stays. But if he doesn't make it to the number where the over can't win, then it's done. Because, I mean, look, the sharps are betting unders in these player props. The regular players betting the over. That's factual. It's been going on for years. The inflated price is always going to be there because the player wants to bet his guy, his teammate. This the guy's going to score a touchdown, all that. You don't see the guy won't score a touchdown in the game. It's always, will the guy score the touchdown? Will he be the first to score? So it's the way it's set up. It's just, these are the things that have to happen. But they have to come up with a code and give back a little bit. You don't have to give $250 for a $5 deposit and free play and do all this. Make it ethical that the guy's got a potential bet that looks like it was sided by something. And that's it, and give the money back that way instead of always enticing things with free stuff that the country's about ready to dip into.
The crisis is coming, Mike Jones. The crisis is coming. All right, got about a minute left, and I'm seeing a lean towards Green Bay tonight on your behalf.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I just look at it like as bad as it was last week. They kind of dominated possession. They were in the red zone 5 times. Big game for both teams. But Philly's got a little bit of relaxed. I think they have the division pretty much in hand. Green Bay needs to keep up with Detroit. Line's dropping to 1. Sharps are betting Philly. Maybe the Sharps aren't having as good a year as they think they have. Everybody I talk to likes Philly. I'm going to go the other way, take the Packers, and say that Jordan Love tries to make Rex Ryan look bad on the show tomorrow morning and instead says that he gets it done. Just a shot, a hunch, nothing great, but we'll come back to you Wednesday when we get the picks. And 3-2 last week, I feel some momentum coming. So, and also the hockey. Watch out for some really bad teams that are playing really well from the past. You're getting dog prices with the Sharks, the Ducks, and the Blackhawks consistently, and they're all over 500. So if you keep an eye on hockey, a little bit of a pitch deck. The Anaheim Ducks beat back-to-back nights. The Las Vegas Knights is a plus 180, plus 190, and last night come in and beat the Jets at home 4-1 as a plus 125. So you're getting some prices with hockey with some of these teams that haven't been in the playoffs for the last couple of years because they're getting better, young players playing well. Just a little hunt on hockey.
I love that nothing gets by you, including like Korean ping pong. I mean, you have action on virtually everything. Mike, always a pleasure. Sorry about your G-Man. There, the Brian Daboll firing watch continues. A lot of steam on that in the New York publications today and around the country. I don't know if it's going to happen. And Mike McDaniel, did he save his job with that win over the Bills? I have a feeling this guy's coming back. I really do. No matter
what. Get close to 500, I think.
Yeah,
the new GM might not want him there, so he's got to.
Yeah.
He's got to really show that Stephen Ross puts his foot down, and says you got his guy. So we'll see what happens. But that was an impressive win, and I like him this week laying 2 to the Commanders in Germany. So maybe they can win in Miami, win in Germany. Here we go.
Here we go. All right, Michael, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you tomorrow. And for Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForrest. Thanks so much for tuning in to Bury Your Bookie.